What's going on, my dear friends? Today in this video, let's learn and master the Angular framework's latest version. So let's get started. Alright guys, now that we have covered the earlier lifecycle hooks, let's dive into the next one, NgAfterContentInit. So this is a really interesting one, especially when you start working with the content projection in Angular. So first thing first, what exactly is this NgAfterContentInit? Well, this lifecycle hook is called once after Angular has fully initialized all content projected into the component. So in simple terms, if your component is using something like ngContent tags, so NgAfterContentInit is triggered once that projected content has been inserted into the component's view, right? So now let's get into an example so you can see how this works in action. For this guys, we'll use the same profile component as previous. So first thing first, for this we need to set up the content projection to this component. So inside the profile component, let's set up the content projection. Wait, before that we'll reset this component so we can simply understand this better way. Alright, now inside the profile component HTML file, let's add a div, and inside this let's add the ngContent tags. So hope you guys remember this, we learned about this in detail, right? So simply we use this to project a content that coming from the parent component. Alright, so now let's simply send something from the parent component. So in our case, we'll use the app component as our parent component. So inside the app component HTML file, inside this profile component selector, simply add a p tag and set a dummy paragraph, something like content projected from parent. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, we can see this paragraph that projected from the parent component. Awesome, right? So now let's work with the AfterContentInit hook. So inside the profile component, let's implement this hook. So as you guys know, in order to use any of Angular lifecycle hooks, we have to implement that hook interface to our component class. So let's do this. After this, add the implements keyword and add the hook AfterContentInit. Select this autocomplete. This will end the import statement. Now in order to work with this, we have to add the NgAfterContentInit method. So add that inside this component class. So the method name is NgAfterContentInit. So carefully follow these capital simple letters, right? Now after this, add the parentheses and the method scope. Now guys, simply inside this add a log, console.log, and set a message something AfterContentInit triggered. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. Inside this we got the content that we projected from the parent component, and if we look at the console, we got this log AfterContentInit triggered. So guys, the NgAfterContentInit will simply trigger after the content from the parent has been projected and fully initialized inside the browser view. So guys, simply we are projecting this p tag from the parent app component. When this component start initializing, Angular will know there is a content projection in this profile component. So Angular change detection will watch this ngContent continuously to capture the content projection. Once this ngContent complete the content projection, this will trigger the Angular AfterContentInit lifecycle hook. So that's how we got this log printed inside the browser view. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so now some of you guys may be wondering, when should I actually use this hook? The answer is, Use NgAfterContentInit when you need to perform some actions after the content from the parent component has been projected into your component. This is especially useful for scenarios where you need to manipulate or access that content after it's been rendered. Guys, before end of this lecture, remember these key points. So NgAfterContentInit is only called once after the content has been projected into the component. Unlike NgOnChanges, NgAfterContentInit doesn't rerun every time the content changes. It only runs once after the content is initialized. And also guys, it's especially useful when you are working with content projection and need to interact with or manipulate that content after it's been inserted into the view. Alright guys, so that's the NgContentInit lifecycle hook. It's a powerful tool when you need to work with projected content, making it easier to manage complex components interactions. As you build more complex Angular application, you will start to see where this hook can really come in handy. Alright guys, now that we have covered NgAfterContentInit, so now it's time to move on to the next lifecycle hook in Angular, NgAfterContentChecked. So this hook is all about checking the content that's been projected into a component, and it's give you an extra layer of control over your component's content. So guys, what exactly does NgAfterContentChecked? Well, this lifecycle hook is called after every check of the content that has been projected into your component. That means every time Angular runs its change detection cycle, it will call this hook to allow you to inspect and react to any changes in the projected content. So this is something like the NgDoCheck hook. This will trigger every time the projected content changed. So let's use the previous same example for this. So inside the profile component is file, let's add the hook. As usual, first thing first, we have to add the implementation. So inside this, after this, add a comma and add the hook after content checked. Select this autocomplete. This will add the import. Now next, let's add the lifecycle method. So the method name is NgAfterContentChecked. Carefully follow these capital simple letters. Now after this method, add the parentheses and the method scope. Now inside this, as usual, simply log the message after content check triggered. That's it. So save this and go to the browser. As you guys can see here, this printed the after content checked log. So guys, this triggered after the content projected. Perfect. Alright, so some of you guys might be wondering, why would I need this hook if I already have NgAfterContentInit? The key difference here is that while NgAfterContentInit is only called once, NgAfterContentChecked is called every time Angular checks for changes in the projected content. So this makes it ideal for situations where you need to react to changes in content over time, not just at the initial load. Wait, I'll show you an example for this. So inside the app component, we have this username. So we'll now project this username to the profile component. So inside the profile selector, we'll send this to the profile component. So create h1 tags and add the username variable using the string interpolation. That's it. Now save this and go to the browser. Now we got the username projected here. And inside the console, we got the initial content checked log. Now let's change the username by clicking this button. As you guys can see here, the NgAfterContentChecked triggered again, but the NgContentInit is not triggered. So this is the main difference between these NgAfterContentInit and this NgAfterContentChecked lifecycle hooks. So hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, So keep this in your mind that NgAfterContentChecked is called after every change detection cycle, allowing you to monitor and respond to the changes in projected content. So it's different from the NgAfterContentInit because it runs multiple times, not just once. And also guys, use NgAfterContentChecked when you need to keep an eye on the content that might change over time and you need to perform some actions whenever that happens. Alright, so that's it for the NgAfterContentChecked lifecycle hook. So it gives you a powerful way to track changes in projected content and react accordingly. Whether you are building a complex UI components or just need more control over content projections, understanding when and how to use NgAfterContentChecked can really level up your Angular skills. Alright guys, let's quickly dive into the next lifecycle hook in Angular, and this one's really important when you are working with your components view. So I'm talking about NgAfterViewInit. So guys, what exactly is this NgAfterViewInit lifecycle hook? Well, this lifecycle hook is triggered after Angular has fully initialized the components view and all its child views inside the browser. In simple terms, once all the DOM elements in your component and its children are ready and rendered, NgAfterViewInit gets called. So this hook is especially useful when you need to perform operations that depend on your view being fully rendered. For example, if you want to manipulate DOM elements directly or access the properties of child components, this is the place to do it. Alright, so when does this hook actually run? After Angular finishes rendering your components view, NgAfterViewInit is fired. This happens after the NgOnInit hook and after Angular has checked the components view for any changes. So it's important to note that NgAfterViewInit only runs once during the components lifecycle. If you update the view later on, NgAfterViewInit won't run again. Only the NgAfterViewChecked will handle those scenarios. So let's look at an example for this. So guys, let's simply add this hook inside the profile component.ts file like previous. So first we have to implement this to this component class. So after this, add this. The lifecycle hook interface name is AfterViewInit. So carefully follow these capital simple letters. So add this here and select the correct hook from the autocomplete. This will add the hook import. Now in order to work with this, we need to add the NgAfterViewInit method. So add that here. The method name is NgAfterViewInit. After this, add the parentheses and the method scope. Now inside this, simply add a log so we can simply see when this method triggered. Alright, so save this and go to the browser. Now inside the browser console, so we can see this log. So guys, simply this NgAfterViewInit will trigger once the component is fully rendered inside the browser view. Wait, so let's render this component programmatically so we can see this clearly. Inside the app.component.html file, let's remove the profile component selector and create a button. Set the button text to load profile. From this button, call a method in the click event. So inside this, call a method something load components. After this, add the parentheses. So guys, we already have this method inside the app.component.ts file. In a previous lecture, we learned how to load component programmatically in detail, right? So I'm not going to write this code again. If any of you missed this, you can go back and learn this again, right? Alright, so guys, now only change this post list component to profile component inside this method. So simply this will render this component inside the browser when clicking the button. That's it. So save this all and go to the browser. Now we cannot see the profile component. and also inside the console we cannot see the AfterViewInit log as well. Now click on this button. As you guys can see here, this rendered the profile component, and also inside the browser console we can see this AfterViewInit triggered log. So if I click this button again, this rendered this component again, and inside the console we got the log again. So guys, this is how this NgAfterViewInit works. Simply this will trigger after the component's view is fully initialized. Hope you guys got the idea. Now guys, some of you guys might be wondering, why should I care about this hook? Well, NgAfterViewInit is crucial when you need to interact with your component's view after it's been fully loaded. Let's say you need to focus an input field automatically when the view loads, or maybe you need to dynamically measure the size of an element in the view. These are tasks that require the DOM to be fully available, which makes NgAfterViewInit the perfect hook for them. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright, so guys, that's it for this lifecycle hook. So if we recap this again, the NgAfterViewInit is a powerful tool in your Angular toolkit. Whenever you need to interact with your components view or access child components once everything is loaded, this is the hook to use. Remember, it only runs once. So if you need to respond to view changes afterward, you will want to look into the NgAfterViewChecked hook, which we'll cover in the next lecture. So keep this hook in mind as you build more complex Angular applications, especially when dealing with dynamic content or DOM manipulation. It can save you a lot of headaches by ensuring your code only runs when the view is fully available. Perfect. Alright guys, in the previous lecture we covered NgAfterViewInit. So let's move on to the next lifecycle hook, NgAfterViewChecked. So this one is crucial when it comes to handling changes in the view after it's been initialized. So guys, what exactly is NgAfterViewChecked? So this lifecycle hook is called after Angular has checked the component's view and its child views for any changes. This means that every time Angular does its change detection for your component's view, NgAfterViewChecked is triggered. So this hook is particularly useful when you need to perform operations that respond to changes in the view, especially if those changes aren't tied directly to your component's data, but instead to the structure or content of the view itself. So here's the key things to remember. NgAfterViewChecked is called every time Angular checks the view for changes. So unlike NgAfterViewInit, which only runs once after the view is initialized. So NgAfterViewChecked can be triggered multiple times during the lifecycle of a component. For example, if you're updating the view based on a user interaction, or if data binding causes the view to change, NgAfterViewChecked will be triggered. So let's quickly set up an example so we can understand this clearly. So go to the profile component is file, and first we have to implement this. So after this, class implements add the lifecycle hook, which is the AfterViewChecked. Now select this autocomplete. This will add the import here. Now down here at the NgAfterViewChecked method, inside this simply add a log something AfterViewChecked triggered. Awesome. Now save this all and go to the browser. Now in order to load the profile component inside the browser, we have to click this button. So click on it. As you guys can see here, this loaded the component. Inside the console, we got the both AfterViewInit and AfterViewChecked hooks triggered message. Now here, click on this increment button. We implement this increment logic in a previous section, right? So click on this increment button. As you guys can see here, when this value increase, this is triggering the NgAfterViewChecked lifecycle hook. So simply guys, this will trigger every time the Angular change detection run. Hope you guys got the idea. So guys, why do we need this if we already have NgAfterViewInit? Well, NgAfterViewChecked is essential when you need to perform action that must occur every time the view changes, not just once after it's initialized. So this is the main difference between AfterViewInit and AfterViewChecked lifecycle hooks. Before end of this lecture, one important thing to keep in mind with NgAfterViewChecked is that since it runs frequently, it can impact performance if you are doing heavy computations or complex DOM manipulations within this hook. Always ensure that any code inside NgAfterViewChecked is as efficient as possible to avoid slowing down your application. Alright, so that's it for the NgAfterViewChecked hook. So let's move on to the next and our last lifecycle hook, NgOnDestroy. Alright guys, we have covered a lot of the lifecycle hooks so far, but now it's time to talk about the last Angular lifecycle hook in our list, which is NgOnDestroy. So guys, what exactly is NgOnDestroy? This lifecycle hook is the last one that Angular calls before your component is destroyed. It's your component's final chance to clean up any resources, unscribe form observables, detach event handlers, or do any other necessary cleanup task. Think of it as packing up and shutting down when you are done using a room. You make sure everything is turned off, packed up, and nothing is left behind before you leaving. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, so NgOnDestroy is triggered just before Angular removes the component from the DOM. This typically happens when you navigate away from a view or if you manually destroy a component programmatically. Since it's called right before the component is torn down, it's the perfect place to handle any cleanup tasks that prevent memory leaks and other potential issues. So let's see an example for this. So guys, for this also we'll use the same profile component inside this as usual. First thing first, add the onDestroy hook to implements. So after this comma and the hook name is onDestroy. Select this autocomplete. This will add the import statement. Next, add the NgOnDestroy method down here. Method name is NgOnDestroy. So inside this method, simply add a log, and the log message will be something like NgOnDestroy triggered. That's it. So guys, now what I want to do is I want to close or remove this component from the DOM programmatically. So we did this before, so I'm gonna use that again for this example as well. So guys, inside the app component HTML file, create a button and set the button text as remove profile. Now from this button, let's call this method remove component. Guys, if you can remember, we already declared this in a previous lecture, so hope you guys all remember this. So guys, this will simply remove the rendered component from the DOM. That's it. So save this all and go to the browser. First, render the profile component using this button. Now click on this remove component. Inside the browser console, we got the NgOnDestroy triggered message. So guys, once again, simply this NgOnDestroy lifecycle hook will trigger before this component removed from the DOM. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright guys, so NgOnDestroy is your go-to hook for cleaning up when your component's lifecycle is coming to an end. It's a vital part of managing resources and ensuring your Angular app runs smoothly without hiccups. Always remember to use NgOnDestroy to tidy up any resources your component might have created. This will help you avoid issues like memory leaks, which can be hard to track down and fix later on. So keep this hook in mind as you build and manage your Angular components, and your app will stay clean and efficient. Alright, so I think that's it for this total lifecycle hook section. Some of you guys may get this, some of you guys may not, but don't worry guys, we will get used to these lifecycle hooks when we start to build our project. We will use some of these lifecycle hooks frequently. Alright, so that's it for this lecture. Let's move on to the next chapter.